morning. This is Pat Sharp at NeuroEducation. I'm going to be teaching you a little bit about how it feels to have dyslexia. I'm the clinic director at NeuroEducation, and I started this practice 36 years ago in Spokane, Washington. We're a group of counselors and psychologists. We offer assessment and treatment for learning and behavioral challenges. And we also have a learning clinic, and so this presentation is pretty much to highlight the kind of services that our learning clinic provides. Dyslexia, by the way, is a medical term meaning a severe reading disorder. It is brain-based, and typically it is present despite normal intelligence, good ability to perceive and process most information, good sensory functioning, meaning the child can hear and can see. There's nothing wrong with that apparatus. And there's been instruction. There's been an attempt to teach the child how to read. And that's an important part about reading on our planet, and that is that language, no matter where you're born, is sort of hardwired in the brain. We automatically sort of pick up language, but we don't automatically pick up reading. It has to be taught. And typically it has to be taught in a way that matches the way our brain works. Now, in normal reading, children can learn how to read no matter how you teach them if they have all the neurological options available to them. It doesn't really matter. They can use any option that is required. In the learning disabled or reading disabled population, they have some weak or missing links, and any number of these links can create problems with reading. The end result can look the same, difficulty with reading, but the reasons why can be quite different. So today, I want you to learn that it can be primarily genetic. Researchers have identified a number of genes on the various chromosomes that are genetically linked to different forms of dyslexia. That's the primary way in which it shows up in our population. It can also be acquired, and that's kind of the environmental piece of it, through injury. And the primary injury is some sort of minor stroke at or around the time of birth, or anoxia, which means the lack of oxygen at birth, can also lead to this particular form of a learning disability. Deprivation in general can cause it. That is, a child that's born, let's say, in a third world country and doesn't have enough nutrients and the right kind of food and protein, and the brain doesn't grow in such a way that it needs to have the neurological substrate available for being able to learn to read. And even though that child might be adopted at, let's say, age 3 in the United States by a very loving and well-meaning family, it won't make up for what was lost in those first 3 years. And sensory loss, the loss of sight or the loss of hearing, can also, of course, create difficulties with learning how to read. So we're just going to be looking at experiencing what it feels like from a word recognition point of view. And primarily, I'm going to be talking about two forms of dyslexia. There's more, but basically the main two, and the main one of the main two, is a dysphonetic, or trouble with, that's what dys means, phonics, or sounds for letters. And so primarily they're going to have difficulties associating a sound, an abstract language sound, with a graphic form known as a letter. Because basically our language is phonetic. It is based on a sound symbol system. So the best way to learn to read our language is through phonics, but many children aren't able to do that because they don't have the neural substrates available to do it in that way. Now, a less common form of dyslexia, or difficulty with reading, is dyseidetic, and that's kind of a fancy word that means trouble with eidetic images, or images, graphic images. So what happens there is it's kind of a visual processing disorder, and it's located further back in important links in the brain that process the critical features or even perceive them and process them, the critical features of letters, that then therefore leads to reversals and rotations and omissions. And you're going to get an experience to see what it feels like to have this kind of confusion going on when you're trying to read. So, I've got two experiences for you today. The first one is a phonetic processing disorder, and I'm going to be using a little story I made up about Sam and Dad. And basically what I did for Sam and Dad is I created an alphabet that's formed of the same kind of lines that our actual alphabet is formed from, diagonals, vertical and horizontal lines. But the letters are all different. So you're going to have to play with me on this because you already know how to spell, which is going to greatly help you figure this code out. But I want you to just kind of pretend as if you didn't know that and really kind of lean on the experience of trying to feel what it feels like when you don't know the sounds for the symbols, even though I will have just taught them to you. And then the second experience is one that's more attuned to the visual processing disorder. And this was a fun one to put together. It's a little text excerpt from a geography textbook called Village Life in India. Just a little tiny short paragraph. And I have created a situation, so I have messed up your visual processing. So you will have to work very hard at trying to figure out what it says, even though I'm using standard orthography, regular letters, but I've rotated and created spatial kind of disarrays and also substitutions for letters that look like other letters, just to confuse you. So here's Sam and his dad, and this is a story that we're going to try and read. And you might have guessed that the very first letter up here is S or S, and this is A like apple, and this is M like M, or like the sound you'd make if you're sucking on a lollipop. So that says Sam, and you know this sound already. It's A. Now this isn't the same as this. It's a N, like an N, and this is D, like a dog. So that would be Sam and you know all these sounds already. D, A, D, dad, right? So Sam and dad. Now the first line is O, that's O. This is aw, but when you have two ahs together, they say so this is l, k, and that's a K right there. So that says look, and you know this word already, add, try and sound it out. And you know this word already, and you might graphically recognize the whole thing now as look, but try to kind of keep leaning on those sounds, look. And down here on the second line, we have again, look. Here's the sound you know, ah. This looks like a sound you know, but it's going the other way. It's a T, like in Tom. So that's look at. There's and this one's E, me. Look at me. You know this word. You know this word. You know that's a T and that's an E, but you don't know this sound yet. It kind of looks like this one, but it's different. It's a H, like hot. Now because you can spell, you know that probably says the or the. But if you sounded it out, you'd see you'd get T, H, E. Tahahi doesn't sound like the at all. So that's another quirky thing about our language. You know this word because it's duh. This is and this is k, and the last one is also k, like in look, look. So that's duck, duck. Look at the duck. This is w, a, t, ch. That's C and that's H. And CH together says ch. You can tell this is a very complicated task for new learners to figure out how to decode. It's hard work. Okay, so it's watch. You know this word, it's right there. E, watch me. You know this word because it's right there. And here, add, watch me. This is These two together say ooh. Watch me shoot. Watch me shoot at the duck. And you could have maybe predicted duck. So what I've done here is I put it in regular orthography, and you can see, holy cow, that's a whole lot easier for me to read. I can read that in less than a second, whereas it took a long time to plow through that other one. It's very, very hard work. For a reading disabled child with dysphonics or dysphonetic sort of disorder, the experience is like you just had. It's like you ought to know the words, but you can't remember the sounds for the symbols to sound them out. And even if I paid you $5, it wouldn't make it go any faster. Even if I let you go out to recess first, you couldn't do it any better. It's hard, hard work. It's very frustrating and very demeaning because you don't feel very smart. Now, here's our second experience. This is the visual one where it feels more like a visual processing disorder. I'm going to kind of read it to you and talk your way through it because it's pretty hard to do. This is going to say village life, and you'll notice that T and F share similar graphic details, but they're not quite right. If you flip this over top to bottom, it would look more like an F, but your brain processes it maybe as a T because it looks so similar. So village life in India. And of course, the BD confusion is a very paramount thing in the visual processing disorder stuff. Here's the first paragraph. Whoops, not right. There are two, and again, there's that visual processing error, Indias, the old and the new, and no period because I didn't process it, but the clue here is the capital letter. New, so new sentence, new India may be found in an occasional model, that's the D, model farm village. Now that was hard work. See if you can do this. I've messed you up because your brain is processed, because I planned it that way, a period, an end of sentence. So now you think it's going to be a new sentence. And you may not pick up that it doesn't have a capital letter, so you're kind of lost for what this word could be, but it's actually built. The sentence continues. An occasional farm village built by the government to teach new farming methods. And the end of methods isn't there. It's just not processed. Your brain doesn't see it. It may also be, there's a reversal of the P for the B, be found in the cities. Now I'll give you 1 second to try and read through that on your own. Even now, knowing what it says, you'll find you're much better at it, of course, but you'll find it takes a lot of effort. So start with the title, and then go ahead and read through the paragraph. And you feel the confusion and the frustration when you can't figure out what it says. Okay, good work. That's enough of that. Here it is in a language you recognize. Much easier to read, even with the period that gets misprocessed. I put that in there just so you know you can catch it. You see it if it's a typo, or if your brain does it, you catch it. You know something's wrong. Okay, so to sum up, learning to read is a major, major life task. It's like learning to ride a bike, which is, again, something we're not born knowing how to do. You need to be taught how to do this. It's not hardwired like language. It totally contributes to your well-being, your self-esteem, your mental and physical health, and you just got the tiniest little taste of what that might feel like for a little second or third grader, or even a fifth or eighth grader who's struggling with learning how to read. it definitely won't hurt or spoil a child to help them, in a way that matches how they perceive and process information. So what's next is to learn, now that you've had the experience of what it feels like, because then you can appreciate this is a tough thing. Look for the next little video clip I have on assessing reading disabilities. So you can do it by that title. You can look for it by NeuroEducation, which is the name of our company, or you can look for it by my name, which is Pat Sharp. So thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it.